Hey y'all, I'm the captain, and this is Sailing on the Spectrum, where I talk about challenges growing up with autism spectrum disorder. Welcome aboard. Today I want to talk about the issue of sound sensitivity in those on the spectrum. This is one that is definitely a very common thread among those on the spectrum is sensitivity to sound, especially loud and sudden noises which can, for us, be very panic inducing and because they can be actually painful and traumatic. We can also be very under receptive to certain other sounds or stimuli that other people seem to be receptive to more readily. But for us, it definitely is a issue because I know for me, it's one of the earliest things that perhaps really made my differences stand out. It, when I was growing up, of course, autism was not understood well at all, especially in the US, and especially mild autism spectrum disorder. I was homeschooled for first and second grade, or actually, no, for kindergarten and first grade. By second grade, was put in school with other kids. And that is when I became exposed to the fire alarm. That became a source of panic and meltdowns for me when I was at school. It became a source of embarrassment and I think confusion and bewilderment for my teachers and my parents. I would hear announcements, each day at the beginning of each day, of course, on the intercom as it came through every classroom through the speaker in the ceiling. And I may have been a little intimidated by that, but maybe not much. But I just remember whenever the announcement was made that there was going to be a fire drill, then I would become very worried because I knew that meant that this insane noise was going to be happening at some point in the day unexpectedly. And I know that it got to be where I would be I would actually become almost hysterical and I cried and I had to go hide somewhere and I had nowhere to hide. I had to just basically sit in class, go about my day, go through the motions, knowing that they were going to be interrupted by this something that was traumatic for me, it's like I can remember very vividly the sound of the fire alarm at my elementary school. It goes, and it was just one of those things you carry with you because I think sadly, you can very clearly carry with you vivid memories of things that are painful and traumatic, especially in your childhood, but not that you can't carry happy memories. And I have some that are happy, and I didn't have a completely miserable childhood, but it definitely was a real challenge just being in school and trying to be with other, I guess you would say, normal kids, and knowing that I had the characteristics I did, but especially that little thing called the fire alarm, that just made me, uh, made me such a basket case, you know. It got to where, I remember for the other issues that piled up, with what I had at school, I was taken to the school psychologist, I had tests run on me. I even had auditory tests to discern why I was, had such trouble with the noise of the fire alarm. And they actually were, as I recall, very similar and characteristic to what a lot of autistic people, are found to have in terms of their reception to sound. Uh, we have an area of our brain that, is able to process things like this. And there is a certain, I guess you would say, abnormality in development that a affects us and causes us to have this, what if you might say, deficit in that area. I am happy to say that as an adult, I haven't experienced that on the level that I would have in elementary school. As a kid, going to a large public school with a lot of other kids, I really did feel very intimidated and felt like I was a little fish in a big ocean, and things like that that really were troublesome to me made me feel very helpless. And worse, I felt like I was a burden to those around me, uh, and to my parents. I don't think that they necessarily saw me that way, and certainly not my parents anyways, but I just felt that way because I knew that people were having to, I guess if you will, deal with me, especially, and it just felt, I guess in a way, it felt shameful. I think that nowadays I definitely don't have that kind of shame. I do have places, or I have had times where certain sounds, may definitely be a source of discomfort for me. And I still wouldn't like fire alarms, but I'm not around places all the time, where I have to worry about them going off all the time. It's just not my job. I haven't done that. A place I'd worked at for years previously, I didn't normally worry about that either. And it was, and it's not just, just loudness of noises, because there are certain things that people may say are loud, yes, like for instance a lawnmower, but I may not necessarily think that a lawnmower is a big problem for me, or even a vacuum cleaner. I know a lot of kids, if they're autistic, if they're real little, a vacuum cleaner might be something even my parents said that was true of me when I was really little. But probably when I got to be an older kid, I probably was a little bit more accustomed to it, and it wasn't the kind of thing that was always sudden and I didn't know when it was coming. I will say the vacuum cleaner we had back then was one of those ugly sounding ones. It's hard to explain how this noise is, but either way, I could still be okay with a lot of other sounds. I can operate a lawnmower if I need to. I can not, it wouldn't bother me. On the other hand, there are some other noises that I just don't like, and I guess it has a lot to do with the pitch, I guess in some ways, of certain noises as much as the loudness. And I know that in my case, and with a lot of other who are on the spectrum, they can have a very good sharpness in terms of discerning pitch, like musical notes. Not all of them may play music, although some of them may. I can play a little guitar, and tuning a guitar, comes pretty easy for me. I guess playing it, I probably am a little bit rusty on that in that way, but but there are probably certain sounds in music that I like, and then there's others that I'm like, yeah, I just don't really like. They're just agitating, but that depends. Music isn't always as traumatic necessarily as, let's say, a fire alarm, when you're just in elementary school and stuff like that. But I think really when I was a kid and when I was trying to basically survive day in and day out, it did make me feel very, I guess, certainly I carried a great deal of sadness with me, because I felt a lot like the challenges I had were burdensome to those who had a responsibility to care for me. But thankfully, I've been able to grow up and become not only able to have responsibilities of my own, but be responsible for people, including my little girl and my wife. And they understand and they appreciate and know the things about me like that are unique. And sound is definitely one that is interesting in terms of how we on the spectrum receive it and how we process it. If you have any experiences like that, or if you know someone like that, feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to tell me if there's anything that maybe you might find is interesting or maybe difficult to deal with stimuli-wise. Maybe if you're on the spectrum, maybe if you're not. But feel free to, of course, comment and, of course, like and subscribe and share. I'm the Captain, and I'll be seeing you on the next voyage. Bye.